So the next character I'm going to look at is Snow White, and her main focus, she is a late game winner. She is going to focus on getting poison cards, as she has a special deck of 18 poison cards that she's going to slowly add to her opponent's discard pile. And then she's going to have other cards that are going to have her opponent discard cards from their draw pile into their discard pile, forcing them to recycle and reshuffle that deck so that they will start drawing those poison cards into their hand. Now this is going to have two different effects. First, it's going to cause her opponents to take damage as she discards, or the opponent discards those cards. They are going to do damage, or some of them will. As the game goes on and she starts unlocking some of her later twists, they're going to compound that damage, adding additional damage to every one of those poison cards as it's discarded. The other effect is that the poison card will give the player power, but it has no other use. So it's going to clog up the player's hands, making their strategies less and less effective as they get more and more of these poison cards in their deck. So the key when facing Snow White is to hit her hard and fast, trying to do a lot of damage and not letting her have those opportunities to extend the game and add those poison cards into your deck. As far as Snow White's concerned, you want to get in close with your opponent and deal that damage so that you can start adding those poison cards and using your deck effectively, getting through those skills so that you can get to those twists that you need to start doing more and more damage as those poison cards start coming up in your opponent's deck and they have to discard them. So those are going to be the keys to handling that. So from there, Snow White's backstory is very interesting. She is part of a kingdom that her parents are ruling, and they had a prophet that came to her with this dire information, or came to her parents with this dire information, that Snow White was going to grow up and destroy the kingdom with her dark arts. Her parents did not want to believe this and loved their daughter very much, so they decided not to heed this warning or listen to it potentially, and they decided to watch their daughter instead. As the years passed, they did notice that her daughter had an affinity for the dark arts and started talking with her mirror for no apparent reason. So finally her mother decided with a sad heart that she wanted to use this poison apple that the prophet recommended that would kill Snow White. And they did, and later on they found Snow White dead, so they decided to bury her in a crystal coffin. Unfortunately for them, Snow White was not dead and ended up waking up in this crystal coffin and struggled for days, weeks, months, even years to break free. Finally, in her desperation, she decided to call on the Dark Arts and pledged herself to them if they set her free. So the Dark Arts sent 7 knights that broke her free, and she subsequently turned them into venomous, poisonous snakes to aid her in her quest to seek vengeance on everyone and everything that hurt her. So she started off killing the prophet and her parents, and then turned her wrath on the kingdom, destroying it utterly and killing everyone in it. From that day on, she roamed the wilderness, seeking poor souls that she ran in contact with to defeat and destroy them. As she was undead, she needed their life force to sustain her beauty and her life. So she constantly needed to basically feed on others. So join me as I take a look at the deck and break down each one of the different decks and the basic strengths and weaknesses of them. Snow White has a special deck of 18 poison cards that are broken down into the 3 levels, level 1, 2, and 3. Throughout the game, her other decks are going to cause her to place these cards into her opponent's discard pile or hands, and these will have all kinds of effects. First off, each one of the cards will deal damage to the opponent when discarded. Level 1s don't do any damage, level 2s do 1, and level 3s do 2. The opponent can also spend these cards as an action to gain a power point, but then there will be other cards in Snow White's deck, as you're going to see, that will compound these effects, doing damage to the opponent and cycling through their discard pile or their deck in order to add more and more of these cards, slowly choking out the opponent's hand and causing them all kinds of problems. Snow White's attack deck is all about doing short-range damage to her opponent and having them discard cards. So she's going to start with the Shard Storm, and this one's going to have a range 1 damage, plus the basic attack card used to activate it. Then it's also going to cause your opponent to discard the top card of their deck into their discard pile. Moving over to the Shard Tempest, this is the level 2 version and is going to do a little bit more damage and have their opponent discard 2 cards. Then we unlock the first twist, which is the Crystal Coffin. This one is going to, when you do at least 2 damage to your opponent, either from an attack action or a attack skill, you get to add the top card of your poison deck to that player's discard pile. From there, you're going to move on to the Shard Vortex, which is the most powerful version of this, dealing 3 damage and having your opponent discard the top 3 cards. And then finally, the bottom twist in each one of the decks is going to be the Poisoned Purity. And these are going to be cumulative, so depending on the number of these that you have, it's going to add up. And each one of these is going to, whenever a poison card is discarded, it is going to do an additional point of damage. So now all of a sudden, those level 1 cards are going to do 1 damage, level 2s will do 2 damage, and level 3s are going to do 3 damage. And this is again cumulative with other Poison Purity twist cards. Snow White's defensive deck, again, is going to cause her opponent's damage, but with her defensive deck, she is not actually going to be adding defense to her character, so she is not going to have a lot of defense, so you really have to focus specifically on doing that if that's something that you're going to need. So first off, she's going to start with the Tainted Offering. This is going to give her a range 1 attack that does 1 damage, and then based on the skill card's level that she plays to activate this, she's going to place that number of poison cards into her opponent's discard pile from the top of her deck. The level 2 card simply just increases the amount of damage that it does, but other than that, it works exactly the same way as level 1. From there, then, she's going to lock her first twist, which is Corrupted Destiny. This one is going to have her, when she would place a poison card into her opponent's discard pile via one of these defensive skill cards, she instead gets to choose one of those to add straight into that player's deck, and then they'll shuffle that deck as normal. From there, then, we are going to move into the Tainted Maelstrom. So this one, again, is just going to increase the amount of damage that it does, but otherwise works exactly the same way as the other 3. And then finally, she's going to finish off with her second twist, which again is the Poison Purity, which will be cumulative with all the other Poison Purity cards that she unlocks. Snow White's movement deck is going to give you a little bit of range and will also allow you to move in close to your opponent so you can optimize and be able to use your other attack and defensive cards. She's going to start with her Shattered Passage, and this one is going to give her a range based on the basic card that she uses to activate this card. This is going to also give her 1 damage, and then will allow her to move into one of these spaces that's adjacent to her opponent. The level 2 card is just going to increase that range by 1, plus the basic movement card she spends to activate this card. Followed by the first twist, which is the Venomous Turn. With this one, after you move through an opponent via a move action and not a skill, so you cannot use one of these cards to do that, or your opponent moves through you via a move action, you may place the top card from your poison deck into their discard pile, so again, adding more poison to your opponent's discard. Finally, she's going to finish off with Shattered Destiny, which is going to give you 2 range, plus again the basic movement card you play to activate this card. And then the final twist is going to be that Poisoned Purity again, and again is cumulative with any other Poison Purity cards that are out there. Moving over to Snow White's epic cards, first she's going to have the 7 Serpents, so if she chooses this one, it's going to give her a range 1 attack, and then her opponent is going to take a number of hit points based on the number of poison cards in that opponent's discard pile. So this one's very powerful late in the game if you've been very successful in getting those poison cards into your opponent's deck. Next, we have Brewing Destruction. If you choose this one, it's going to give you 3 range and 3 damage to your attack. And then you may choose and shuffle in up to 3 cards from your opponent's discard pile back into her deck. So this one is great for adding those poison cards back into her deck that she's simply going to have to draw again. Finally, we have the Rain of Mirrors. This one is a very short range of 1 and does 3 damage, but it also has your opponent discarding all cards from her hand and then drawing 4 new cards. So this is a very powerful one, especially if your opponent also has an epic card and you have a feeling that they have it in their hand. This is a solid one to play as they're going to have to discard their hands and then draw new cards. Well, I hope that you found this video helpful and gave you a little bit of insight into this particular fable. I will have videos covering each one of the fables, as well as some other videos covering Twisted Fables. So check those out as well, and always let me know in the comments down below what you think of these, if you found them helpful, and if you have any other questions or comments, post those in the comment section down below, and I'll do my best to answer them. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my videos and leave me feedback on them. I do appreciate it and take into account everything you say to make the best possible videos. Until next time, I'll see you later.